years today. Why did I choose this topic of TA? Those of us who are in HR, for us, TA means talent acquisition. We never look at it as transaction analysis. It is, what is your TA? What is your talent acquisition ratio and things like that. But understanding TA in itself is a very long concept because it took me 4 years to do my PhD, which is in TA. And I have done it in 3 companies with more than 1,000 people whom I interviewed and assessed on a psychometric tool, which I have developed myself. So it takes a long time to understand TA. It is one of the oldest methods of understanding people and interpersonal skills. Some years ago, all of us have gone to school many, many years ago. Same was the case with me. I went to a convent school. And you know, in a convent school, you have all these different subjects. Today, everyone has. We used to have a drawing teacher. And I remember my drawing teacher telling me that I should be drawing a brinjal. So much to the disappointment of myself and the teacher, I couldn't draw the brinjal. And the teacher gave me just 1 mark out of 10. And very, very specifically told me, go home and ask your dad to sign this. Now imagine, at the age of 7 or 8, you go to your dad who is an academician and you tell him to sign a paper which is 1 on 10. My dad looked at it and said, forget it. You'll never draw even a straight line in your life. Possibly that is the simple reason why I did not choose finance or marketing, where I had to do numbers and drawing. Why do we do this? Because all of us as adults have varied past experiences which we carry with us, which is a baggage. And this baggage at times can be a hindrance to our growth. And when it becomes a hindrance to our growth, then we start becoming more and more inward and not interacting with people. TA helps us to understand that how to interact with people at different levels. May I request Sheila to please start the PPT?
Yeah. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
As adults, you will understand that we have total control over the choices we make, which is based on a past experience, a belief, or developed patterns. I can give you a very simple example. Some years ago, I ventured into consulting and I did consulting for over 10 years. I had a partner who was a South Indian coming from Chennai. And here I am a Maharashtrian and married to a Kannadiga coming from both Maharashtra and Karnataka. He believed that anything you do on an Amavasya day is the growing moon. And for me, it was not so. So whenever we wanted to start a program or go into a new venture, we always had some or the other conflict. And at that point in time, I did not know how to get over it. But over the years now, I'm able to understand why his belief came and where it came from. TA helps us to understand why we behave the way we behave and what can we do to make it better or what can we do to improve ourselves to become better. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah, coming.
Where do you choose to live? We always tell our children, take onus, become responsible. Responsible means having the ability to respond to life situations. We all have this ability. I'll give you a simple example. In this today's world, where the pandemic is making people mad, and as you will read in the newspapers, that people are getting into mental health, and mental health is becoming a big issue, and the next possibly money-making business post the pandemic. Why? Because although I have the ability to choose is my freedom. Whether I want to respond either positively or negatively, I have the power of choice. And we all choose either we become owners or we become victims. When we become victims, we lay the blame on someone else. I didn't do it, he did it, she did it, my boss did it, my colleague did it, everyone except me. And therefore, then we try to justify ourselves as to why we did what we did. Or we go into total denial mode. No, this is not possible. How can it be? It is not done. And things like that. But we forget that that ability to respond still remains with us. And we then, if we cannot do anything, we just quit. Quitting is not an answer. Quitting is getting out of the situation, but without being able to deal with the situation. That is the easiest way out. However, if we take responsibility for what we are doing, then we have the freedom to decide how to do it, to decide where to do it, with whom to do it, and whether to do it or not. Then the power of that comes to me, not to anyone else. I have therefore the choice to respond either positively or negatively or neutrally. And believe me, friends, most of us believe that we should be doing it neutrally because that is the best thing. Na? मैंने नहीं बोला, उसने बोला, क्या पता? And therefore we just keep on postponing or procrastinating, making and taking the responsibility. Next slide. Life is all about choices. You will all agree. If you cut away the situation, if you cut away all the junk from your head, I'll give you a very simple example. It happened to me during this pandemic. I was so mortally afraid. I am even today still mortally afraid of getting people into my house or going out anywhere. I rarely go out, and even if I do, I just go out about once a week. I have had to train my mind to accept that this is going to stay here and how to choose and react to a situation. You also have to choose how people will affect your mood. When a plumber came into my house, I went and sat in my bedroom because that is what I was told. Don't stay in the same room as that person. Put on your mask, do this, do that. So many people have given us so many situations, so many responses that all these affect our mood. And therefore, we can choose whether we want to be in a good mood or a bad mood. Ultimately, the choice is yours, how you want to live your own life. Because if you live your life on your terms, it is very likely you will be happy. But if you will live your life on the terms of others or on the terms of your own thoughts, which may be negative, then it is a difficult journey to go back to the positive. It may require either help or it may require meditation. Next slide, please. So you can be either the tip of the iceberg or you can go below the iceberg, whichever you choose. And there is only two choices, yes or no, up or down. And that we have to do as we go along in life's journey. Next. When I wake up every day, I just read a friend of mine had his WhatsApp, on his WhatsApp, his image was, today I woke up and found I still had two eyes which could open. Each day when I wake up, I have two choices, either to be in a good mood or to be in a bad mood. It is easy to go into a bad mood because we start complaining. We get attacked. People pay attention to us because then they want us to get back into the good mood. But if you get up with a smile in the morning, it is possible and likely that you will continue to remain with a smile for the entire day. I'm not saying that it is possible every day. Maybe in a week, at least 3 times a week, we promise ourselves that we'll get up in a good mood. And then do either some yoga or exercise or do whatever you like, which will put you in a good mood and not get you into the negative mood. Next slide, please. Our choice, as simple as it sounds, we must try to be the best person that we can. If you remember, very many years ago, those of us who are working or have worked, the first day at work, what was it like? Try and remember that. How well you were dressed, how well you were poised, all the best etiquettes and manners in the world had been there. And you went to the office on the first day. And imagine that when you went there, they told you, okay, sit in the visitor's room. We'll call you when we have made space for you. What is the feeling? You have been called for a job and they have not made space for you. We feel very, very disappointed. But we have a choice whether I want to be disappointed or I want to enjoy the AC and watch out of the visitor's room and let them take their time. make that best choice to show the best person that you are. Think of that day when you got married or fell in love and you posed your best personality to your spouse, because that was what one, she or he fell in love with you and you got the best. That was the talent you had to pose your best self. And therefore, when we make choices, make them on the talents that you have been given. We all have inherent talent. Like very often people say that a doctor's son should be a doctor, a teacher's son should be a teacher. Not necessary. A teacher's son may not necessarily be a good teacher, maybe a good researcher. Very many academicians, if you see, are very good in research, are very good in writing, but very few are good at standing on the dais, facing an audience, and talking to people. It is difficult because so many eyes are looking at you, and that talent which you have is overwhelmed by those eyes or pair of eyes that look at you. Therefore, much as we may try and much as it may sound simple, let us try to make the best of the person that we are with the talents given to us or with the talents that we have acquired. Next slide, please. The choice that we make will determine the outcome of our life. A very simple example I'll give you here. I have a friend. She's 84 years old and she's a psychologist. And she has, her whole aim in life is to help people become better. And she enjoys it. She goes out, she goes on trips, she travels, everything. And she talks to people so positively that positivity rubs you when you talk to her. Therefore, you can determine your choice and you can determine the friends you want to make. Because friends who are negative are not going to help you become better. Friends who are positive are going to help you become better. Like during this pandemic, once or twice I spoke to a friend and found that she kept labeling everything that I did. Thereafter, I never spoke to her because it was bothering everything that I did. And each time I said something or did something, I could hear a voice at the background. So I stopped talking to her. I made friends with another person or a very old friend whom I know for 30 years. And she helped me. She helped me to make the best choices. She also helped me to come and realize that this pandemic is what is bothering the world. Not only me, Savitri, it is bothering everyone. Just see how a small virus has put all our lives at hold. And much as we make the choice that we want to stay positive, there are times when we can go back to becoming negative. Therefore, try to determine what choices you make so that you enjoy the life that you have. Because life is lived by the years and not how we choose to live and not by how long we live. Next slide, please. Therefore, one of the key things in understanding self is understanding not only oneself but also understanding others. And the key is understanding others through communication. Transaction analysis is a tool of communication. It helps you understand why people behave and communicate the way they communicate. It helps you to convey information in a manner that you have said so that the other person can understand and you are able to accurately know the person's emotions. For example, someone's audio is on.
Request you to switch off your mics, please.
You can interpret people's emotions. For example, when a child comes home from school and says, "Teacher shouted at me today," and you ask him why, what does he do? He puts his eyes down, head down, and answers you because he does not know. And you immediately know, you did some masti today in class. That's why teacher is asking you. So that's why you're putting your head down. We are also being sensitive to people's feelings. We need to be sensitive because we need to understand people and we need to calmly come to resolutions from conflict. Come to resolutions from conflict is, I can agree with you to disagree, but yet we can be both friends because there are perceptions which are different and each of us comes with this baggage of perceptions with us, and these perceptions make or mar a relationship. Being polite. The English, when they left this country, left us with three words: please, sorry, and thank you. Please, because may I come in, may I go. Sorry if I've done a mistake. And thank you for whatever you have done for me and for whatever God has given to me. We must learn to be thankful to everything that comes into our life. Like, for example, today, in these times, Making gratitude a part of your daily life will help resolve conflicts and also arrive very, very calmly towards the conflicts. You will understand people's feelings, that is, empathize with them, and also be able to interpret their emotions very well. Very often with our spouse, even if the spouse does not speak, we are able to understand the emotions. Why? Because we are so close to that person that any movement of the body or the face lets us know what is the emotion of that person, and therefore we are able to interpret it better. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. What is transaction business? Transaction analysis is a term which was coined by Eric Burns, who was a psychologist, and he believed that we all operate from three ego states. He says within a person, there are three different persons who operate at any given point. And these three different persons are the ones that are to be blamed for making communication conflicts. I'll give you his theory is very old and therefore suggests that we react to confrontation, management, and authority through either one of these ego states. A very, very, very simple day-to-day example I can give you is I am a teacher and I live in Siam. And all along this area, people know me. So one day I decided I wanted to go to eat bhel puri in one of the stores. It's a very nice store in Matunga. And I went there. The minute I went there, I had, good evening, ma'am. How are you, ma'am? What are you doing, ma'am? You like bhel puri, ma'am? I was so overwhelmed with these reactions, with these kind of people there, that I told my husband, I'm not coming here again to eat bhel puri because it seems to be full of my students. My parent ego state told me, you are a teacher and you have to be able to deal with this. My child ego was enjoying the attention that I was getting, and my adult ego told me, stop, think, you have a choice whether you want to eat bhel puri or pay attention to what the people are saying. Therefore, this theory believes that decisions are made by three different ego states: the parent, the child, and the adult. As we go along, we will see. Next slide, please. It is based on the idea that one's behavior and relationships are interchangeable. Either we are very critical or we are very nurturing. Like we are very critical when we say, no, this is not the way it is done. Or we scold, or we disapprove, or we get critical so much that the person says, Jane do baba, kaun tumko samjhayega? Forget it. The other bit is being very nurturing, sitting on people's head. As a boss, have you ever heard your subordinate saying, क्या सर पे बैठता है, काम खत्म करने तक मेरे सर से हटता नहीं है? That is one way of nurturing. Or the other way of nurturing is your child has gone to school, has gone to college for the first day, and you keep sending messages and ringing up every 10 minutes. Where are you? What are you? Where are you doing? What are you doing? Have you reached? Call me. This, that. That can be either very nurturing, which is caring, or it can be very nurturing, which can be bothersome. Then there is the child in us, which is intuitive and dependent. Intuitive is your innovation, is your ability to create new things. And that is the part of our brain, which is the right side of the brain, which if kept active and we do creativity and we do lots of creative things, it is likely to remain active. Otherwise, believe me, friends, from the age of 14 or 15, we were told, don't think differently. Do what I tell, be the way I tell. You will read and you will mug and you will present. Like we had our students' presentation today. And whenever a student read, I told him, I said, did you mug it up? He said, yes, ma'am. I forgot, therefore I had to read. So see how well we are conditioned in life that read, mug, and present. There is no creativity. In today's world, in this world, where we are so connected in the virtual world, you will find two main things that people say. One is, am I audible?
Yes.
And the other is, am I visible? These are the two things which we all say. So I suggest to you, think of something new. That is the creativity. Think, ask your child, ask your right brain, can I say something else? Instead of saying, am I audible, am I visible? Can I say something new? Or we are dependent. Like I joined, maybe I'll give an example, that I joined an organization and I'm there for 1 week and my subordinate has been there for 10 years. Whenever I have to make a decision, I tell that subordinate, Bhaiya, you have spent longer time in this organization than me, so you make the decision. So I'm dependent on my subordinate for making the decisions. I don't take onus. Why? Because the child in me tells, don't take responsibility. गड़बड़ हो गया तो तुम्हारे सिर पे आएगा. And therefore, I get dependent. The main thing is, when you do this test in TA, your own adult, which is a rational self, the adult in us tells us whether what we do is right or wrong, or whether it is approved or disapproved, or whether it is socially acceptable or not acceptable. Most of us today, like we told our students today, some of them in the beginning tried to impress us with their elevator speech. So my colleague said, look here, guys, I'm a teacher, I get paid for my job, and I don't need you to impress me. So that is the adult in me, which is so firm and says, this is it, and this is what I want. So result, this is the problem, this is the solution, and these are the options that you have. The adult always thinks of varied options and also thinks of doing things that to a large extent could be socially acceptable. I'm not saying always, because in that scenario, if the child comes in, then it is gone for a toss. Then you become childlike and you get creative and intuitive. Like today we had a person talking about a film called The Dark Knight, which is on Spider-Man. And he wore the Spider-Man dress and everything, and he made his presentation, which was very creative. So as an adult also, it was very appreciated. Therefore, our childlike behavior can influence the adult or can also influence the parent. How it influences the parent? We try to get attention by trying to be very critical or throwing tantrums, or we try to get clinging to our parents saying, no, mama, please don't go. I cannot do without you. I need you. So childlike can be very, very dependent. And if you are childlike, keep the intuitive part of you alive, not the dependent part of you. Okay? And it explains why we think, act, and feel the way we do. It claims that we can better understand ourselves by understanding our transactions with the people closest to you. From an experience, I can tell you that whenever I've done the TA test and the persons in the classroom, the next question after I've analyzed the test, they say, ma'am, can you give us another sheet? We'll give it to our spouse. We want to see what is our compatibility with our spouse. My only suggestion then is don't look at it, because then you may get into trouble. So let it remain the way it is. A hidden truth is better than a half knowledge or a half truth. So very often I discourage people from taking it away from the classroom, because those of us who are not trained in TA do not know how to analyze the test. I have done a TA course from Kerala Institute of TA, and therefore, based on whatever I have learned, I've been able to do the analysis. And by the grace of God and the blessings of my elders, to a large extent, my TA test fits the cap of the person. And I found people saying, ma'am, how did you know that? Are you an astrologer? How do you know what happened? And therefore, I find that it is very encouraging and it is very, very engaging when I do the test in a classroom of 30. I don't take more than 30 people in a classroom, because if you want to give individual attention, then 30 is even a large number. I typically do the TA test as a generalized test. And then if people choose to come and ask, what did my test score say, is when I go into the details of the test. Otherwise, I prefer to do it as a generalized test. Next, please. TA believes in ego states, and they are the key or the core model which provide us the understanding of our personality. And what is an ego state? Eric Berne defined an ego state as a pattern of feeling, experience related to a corresponding consistent pattern of behavior. Very many of us, every year on the 1st of January, make a resolution, I'm going to reduce weight, isn't it? Most of us do that. I'll go to the gym, I'll diet, I'll do this, I'll do that. There is a Dikshit diet and there is a Divekar diet. So we decide on which diet we want to do. But are we consistent? By December, we have not lost even 1 kg of weight. Maybe we have put on more than that. So being consistent is also one of the ways of understanding yourself. Like over a period of time, I find myself to be very, very consistent in the way I deliver my lectures, in the way I'm able to connect to people, and in the way I'm able to draw attention from my class when students are there, either through stories or through anecdotes or through my own life experiences. I prefer to say my own life experiences because they're genuine. They have been experienced by me and because they relate to me directly. Like in this pandemic, I can say I've been a little inconsistent in my pattern of behavior. Some days I'm very, very happy because I did something, and some days I'm so morose that I don't know what happened to me. And then I analyze. I try to get the analysis, and then my daughter, who's a psychologist, says, "Mama, stop. I will tell you what happened to you." So I have her now as my backup who tells me how to get back into consistent patterns of behavior. Next slide, please. Okay. Coming to the ego state now. It is a psychological state. It is a guide of the feeling, thinking, and behavior. The way you think is the way you behave, and that is the way you feel. Your behavior is dependent on what you think and how you feel after the thinking. What I think is controllable by me. I always remember Sadhguru. Sadhguru says that you have to become the master of your thoughts. Don't let your thoughts become the master of you. It is one sentence which has stuck so strongly in my head that each time I am upset, each time I am trying, my head goes haywire. I tell myself, Sadhguru said this, and go to the dustbin. So I call that action, I've labeled that action as Savitri, dustbin. So then I just throw my thoughts into the dustbin and I go back to becoming normal. The other way of controlling your own behavior is trying to earth yourself. That is, if your behavior is not controllable or your thinking is not controllable, try to jump, try to touch the floor and feel the floor as much as you can and come back into the present so that you can control your behavior thereafter. The behaviors are controlled by 3 ego states as per Eric Burns. He says we have a parent ego state, which is our taught concept of life. What I am today is a product of my conditioning in childhood. Like, for example, I was coming from a family of 5 people. And I always say I married into the other station. Why? Because when I came into this house, there were 20 people in the house. Coming from a small family of 5 into a family of 20, I had to relearn everything. So even if I had some concepts which were taught, the new concepts had to be learned and had to go back into my ego state. So I had a new ego state, parent ego state, which was either controlling, protective, or critical. When you are controlling, you try to control everything that is around you. And today, most of us are frustrated because we cannot control the future. We don't know what is going to next happen, what the virus is going to do. Is the vaccine going to come out? Is there a tablet? What is it? How can I control myself? How can I control the infection? How can I control myself and become better? Or how can I protect myself from this whole thing? We get critical also sometimes, where we criticize people to a very large extent. Like we tell people, no, ye nahi hota hai. This is your age and you cannot behave like this. You better pay attention. Like, for example, most working mothers are always told that you are not taking or you don't own your children's behavior. You are made to feel guilty for working. But if you start feeling guilty, where will you land yourself? Nowhere. So you have to get to help yourself and protect yourself from feeling guilty. So the parent in us teaches us our culture, our values, our beliefs, and also our systems thinking. Like, for example, some of us feel, or most of us feel, that it is the woman who runs the whole household. But if I ask my daughter today, both my daughters will say, no, we do equally. Even my husband has to do A, B, C, D things, and I have to do A, B, C. They're very clear about what they want, how they want, and when they want it. Whereas you and me, most of us from the generation that I come from, which is post-independence, we were told that you will do A, B, C, D things, and we have been conditioned to do it. And sometimes when we don't do it, we try to rationalize. Rationalization is a very good way of feeling good, because do you like every person in your life? No. But you want every other person to like you, isn't it? How can that happen? It is a two-way street. If you don't like, that person also has the right and ability to say no to you, to say, no, I don't like you, or I don't like your behavior. Always tell the person the behavior. Don't label the person for his thinking or feeling. Very often we tell our children, kya gadha hai? Just imagine at 8 or 9, every second day, your mother telling you, gadha hai, gadha hai, gadha hai. By the time you are 10, you really believe you are a gadha. And by the time you are 30, you always think you are a gadha. So that gadha is stuck in your head. Therefore, try not to label people. Judge them by their behavior. I wouldn't even say judge them, but treat them by the behavior they tell you or show you. And then, if it is factual, today everything is based on data. Data runs the world, and people love to listen to data. Even I knew I don't listen to the news because it disturbs me. But there are people who love to follow the pandemic growth, how many cases, how many down, how many up, and they enjoy it. Some of us don't. So factual data is also important to help us in conversations. And this data sometimes, or more often than not, should be looked at as unemotionally as possible. The minute you get involved in the numbers, you are attaching a meaning to those numbers. But when you look at it like you're sitting in a chair and you think you're sitting in a chair and you got out of the chair and standing in the corner and looking at yourself sitting in the chair and try to judge, try to look at yourself. How am I? Is this me? Am I emotional? Am I crying? If this happens to me, do I do this? So if you're able to look at yourself from remote, you become unemotional. You can become unemotional. That is, you can look at yourself without attaching the emotions to it. Otherwise, more often than not, we all attach emotions to our feelings as well as to our thinking. Become independent thinkers. Like today again, I would say, when I asked the students to do the elevator pitch, the minute the student read out, you knew that he had copied all that text from somewhere. So we immediately asked them, where did you copy this from? And you should have seen the face of the student. Oh man, how did you know? So then my colleague said, हम लोग क्या फुकट के बैठे हैं क्या इधर? We know what you do and we know where you do. Therefore, we want you to be independent thinkers. All this comes to us with maturity. We do not get it at the age of 7 or 8, but by the time we are 25, 27, it comes to us, and as we age, maturity comes to us even more. And therefore, the adult in us comes out more strongly as we grow, accompanied by the parent, because we killed the child. And therefore, we become either controlling or we try to become very, very rational and factual. Tell me the facts. Tell me what happened. Tell me how it happened. Forget all those 5 HWs and just remain rational. Think rationally, emotionally little, and be independent thinker. The last is the child in us. And there are 3 child ego states. There is a free child. You remember the story of a teacher who went into a classroom and gave each one of the child a balloon and said, write your name on that balloon. And after a point said, leave the balloon now. So everyone left the balloon and the teacher said, now go and find your own balloon. That is the free child. You want to go and search everywhere. Where is my balloon? Where is my balloon? So much of cure, so much of fun, everything that happens. And that free child in us has stopped because as we grow older, we became so mature that we forgot to enjoy life. So today, sitting at home, if you can think of some creative ways of dealing with life, your free child will become very, very alive. Then there is the little professor who tells you at all times, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and advises you. Like you will have when parents are fighting and the child is about 8 or 10 years, come stop. He tells the parents, stop fighting. That is the little professor in us, which tells us whether to do or not to do. And there is an adaptive parent. The adaptive parent in us is the one who adapts to life situations. And this is very contextual. This changes from situation to situation. So even when you do the TA test, your adaptive score is likely to be very high because in this point of time, possibly you're adapting a lot to life situations. The free child is very spontaneous, is very curious, is very creative. We also have children who are very clumsy, very often in the classroom. You'll find a boy who comes with his hair shuffled, who comes with the tie half worn, his shirt coming out from his, instead of inserting, it is coming out from all sides, and he walks into the class as if he's walking into dreamland. That is a clumsy child. And some are rebellious. Why should I do it? Like when I ask my grandson, Advait, why did you do it? He will say, because. He never gives you a full answer. It is always because. He will rebel. He will say, I will not do it. Tell him to eat a chapati, he will say, no, I want an egg. Tell him to drink milk, he will say, no, I want a fruit juice. So rebellion comes to us very easily, especially in the boss and subordinate. Very often you would find yourself saying that, why should I do, just because my boss wants me to do it? I'm not going to do it. And after a point, when you go back and sit in your place and you think rationally, you say, जाने दो, कौन मरेगा? फुकट का उसका चिल्लाना सुनना पड़ेगा. Let me do it. And you give in and you do it. That is the adult in you which is controlling you and telling you that adapt to life situations. In this context, this is important. Yes, when you want to rebel at times, you can rebel, but not always, because that is not what is important. Sometimes we are very frustrated and we transfer our frustration to people. Like when I walk into the classroom, for example, or as teachers, when we walk into the classroom, the minute we start shouting at students, it only means that I have had a bad day and I'm just passing that bad day to others. So frustration is like a virus. It passes from people to people. Therefore, avoid carrying your baggage into the classroom or into any situation, because you are only making that situation worse. There are some of us who are not bothered. You know, very often you would have seen in a family of 2 or 3, there is always one person who is not bothered. No responsibility, no money earning, nothing, but lives like a king and demands everything in life. Such a person seeks only pleasure from life and not responsibility. That is also not one way of doing things. It is better to be more rational. It is better to be independent. And it is also sometimes good to have control and be protective. Criticality is not an answer to anything, because that will only distance you from your relationships. Next slide, please. Therefore, we have certain assumptions about ourselves and others in the society. Life positions are those positions which we have an attitude towards ourselves, which can be positive or which can be negative. Sometimes I am okay, but you are not okay. Like it is when the boss thinks he is right and does not consider listening to you. Or when the child says, I'm not going to do it, I am right, you may go to hell, I don't wish to listen to you. At that point, you are not okay, because you are not able to explain things to the child or to the boss, but the other person is very, very okay about this situation. At times, I'm not okay, but you are okay. Where I tell myself that yes, it is good to be here, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do in life. I don't know where I'm going. So please help me, please help me, please help me. So I consider myself that I'm not okay, and that the world and the whole world and others are okay. Then there is a situation where I am not okay, nor do I consider you to be okay. In this situation, a very simple example is of negative thinking, where I would give an example where you hurt yourself and also hurt the opposite person. And you don't do things which are very, very good. You are always in the negative, and therefore you spread negativity to people. It is said that positivity spreads to 10 people, whereas negativity spreads to 100 people. Typically in life and in everyday situation, we are more or less in an I am okay, you are okay situation. I am okay when I feel good about myself, when I feel good about you being with me, and I accept you for the way you are, and you accept me for the way I am, with no expectations, with no wanting to do this, that, as per our own, but we accept
तुला किती
each,
हवं तेवढं खा समजा. आजीला आणि 2-2 समजा मिळाल्या.
but we accept ourselves as we are. And we accept the world as it is and not expect the world to change as per our situation. Therefore, ideally, if you ask me, we should be in the situation of I'm okay, you are okay. But it is difficult, because at all times, being positive every time may not really be what we have the capacity, especially in these times. So it is likely that at times you are not okay and you consider the other person also not okay. However, as far as possible, try to get back into the okay situation where you'll feel good and you'll spread positivity to people. Today's I'm okay is when I accept, okay, this pandemic is there, it is going to lie for 10 days to 1 more year. There may be a vaccine, I may not see my parents, I may not see my children, I may not see the world outside. And I consider, okay, I'm going to now look at this life also positively towards myself and towards others also. Next. TA can be used to address one's interactions and communications, to reinforce an idea or to establish an idea which is valuable and has the capacity for change and personal growth. Like for example, if I have a habit of being not nice to people, can I change that habit very slowly with the help of TA and with the help of my spouse or my colleague who will help me to make my communication much better and become successful. And this is generated through complementary transactions. That is when both of us are on the same level, or we are in the parent and child mode, or in the adult and child mode. When we communicate complementary transactions, they help us to become effective and successful communicators. Next. Always remember to spend time with your loved ones because all of us are not going to be here around forever. Say a kind word to someone who looks to you in awe. Always a thank you, appreciating. And because that person, like my grandson, always looks up to me and says, Mama ji, you do this, I like your chapati. So I say, okay, today you are 8 years old, so you're liking. Maybe tomorrow when you're 15, you may not like it. So accept it. In today's world, I cannot say give a warm hug to someone next to you. But of course, to family, you can do that at home because it can be done free of cost and it gives your heart and does not cost a single naya paisa. So at least within the family, try to hug your family once a day so that all of us feel reassured and are in it together. Next slide, please. Therefore, choose your thoughts for they become your words. Choose your words because they become your actions. Choose your actions because they become your habits. They are very habit forming. Your actions are very, very habit forming. Like I remember years ago, I always dress in a sari. So one of my students once brought to my attention, ma'am, you always seem to wear saris which have borders. I had never realized that in my life. My action had become so much of a habit that each time I went into a store, I bought a printed sari with a border or a plain sari with a border. And she brought it to my notice that I'm always doing this, which has a habit. And then therefore I tried to change it by having variety in the sari. But ultimately what is a habit is my character. And I'm known for it because of the saris that I wear or because of the way I dress. So people know that if it is Savitri, she will always be in a sari. And my character has become my destiny or my brand. And that is the brand which I exhibit more often than not in the corporate world or in the academic world. Next slide, please. Your mind is like a parachute. It is most useful only when it is open. All of you would know the story of this pilot who was in an aircraft, and when he jumped, his parachute could not open. He had difficulty. However, there was a lever which helped him open his parachute and he was able to land safely. Years later, in a cafe, he met a man almost his age who came up to him and said, I'm so glad to see you. He said, why? He said, sir, I had built your parachute that day. And that man could not forget the gratitude that he owed to him because he saved his life. Same way, if our mind is open, we are able to think more positively, we are able to think more rationally, and we are able to do independent thinking. Therefore, the mind is like a parachute. It is very useful only when it is open. Next slide, please. Thank you. Any questions? Most welcome. We have 5 minutes to go.
I have a couple of things that I need to ask you.
Yes.
Because they have come to me. What are the key concepts of transactional analysis?
The key concepts of transaction analysis are the ego states and the 3 ego states, that is the parent, the adult, and the child. In the parent, there is a critical parent and a nurturing parent. In the child, there is a adult. In the child, there is a free child, an adaptive child, and also a little professor or a rebellious child. and the adult is the thinking person. What you are today is your adult. So if your scores on the adult are at a particular level, it will show your thinking ability, your ability to empathize, your ability to communicate, and your ability to become independent and look at life with emotions and without emotions as well.
Request has come from Team Synergy to switch on your videos for a photograph. Request everyone to switch on their videos, please. Ma'am, in our day-to-day life,
Yeah.
how does transactional analysis avoid getting into conflicts?
If you stop using words like must, should, would, have to, you'll avoid conflicts. But we are so used to it that we keep on, you must do it, you should do it, you have to do it. Kaise nahi karoge? And if you just avoid these few words, you will be able to get into a better conflict resolution. I never say it is not management, it is resolving a conflict. Managing a conflict is easy. I and you can agree to disagree. But when we resolve and talk to each other and say, okay, you agree with this, I agree with this, these are the points, and therefore from this, we will not discuss these points henceforth because we don't agree. That is a resolution, coming to a conclusion that it is okay to be okay with each other.
Yeah. So we leave the floor open for all of you to ask questions one by one to Madam. Please unmute your mic to ask questions so that she could directly answer you.
Hi, ma'am. Good evening. My name is Sharvari.
Yes, Sharvari.
It was a wonderful session. In fact, each and every slide was very impressive.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you so much. Ma'am, I'm having one question which I would
Yes.
like to ask.
Hmm.
Ma'am, as we know that situation or context plays a very important role in the success or the failure of the income, right? So, at times, as at a part of a career progression, that is a job rotation exercise, while doing the internal movement of potential talent from one geographical location to another. So, here in this situation, if I want to assess the compatibility of prospective candidate who is doing very well in one product in one geographical location with a manager of now we have to check whether he is compatible with another product in another geographical location with another manager. So is there any assessment? Can I use the TA test to check the compatibility? Over to Madam. Thank you.
The TA test can be used for compatibility. However, we advise not to, because more often than not, we get biased. And once the boss knows what is your ego state and you know what is the boss's ego state, you will start running after each other in those ego states. And that will be a very ideal situation. There will never be conflicts. And that is not what industry wants. There have to be conflict, there have to be quarrels, there have to be misunderstanding. So life moves on and you're able to move between your three ego states. Otherwise, you'll stick to one ego state and you'll never experience the pleasure of the other two ego states.
I'm taking a small second to launch a poll. Request your feedback by clicking the choice of yours. More seconds. And we'll stop the poll in next 1 second. Thank you so much.
Any other questions before
Yeah.
I end it with the story?
Ask.
Thanks, Sham. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Shyam Iyer. I would like to have a cup of tea with you again in your session at Mulund. It's long time that we have not met, but yes, virtual sessions are required right now. But post lockdown opens, we would surely like to meet you.
Surely, definitely.
Sure. My pleasure, Dr. Savitri and
Thank
Sheila.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions you are welcome to ask?
No? Do you think this little information is going to make sense to you? You can put it in the chat, yes or no.
Yeah,
Because this information is very little.
yeah.
Thank you.
Uh,
There is a question asked by someone whether TA can be
yeah.
imparted to young adults. Young adults, yes, not to children. Young adults above the age of 18, yes.
There's
Because
one.
you understand. For children, it is difficult to understand. They cannot understand ego states. And you'll have more tantrums than anything else once you try to explain anything to them. So it is better when you are an adult that we do the TA.
Yeah, so there's one question which has come to me in private mode. Are emotions part of conflict?
Yes, they are to a very large extent, because in conflict, it is only emotions that work. It is not your senses that work. So you have to first think. Therefore, I generally tell people is when you are in an emotion, when you are in a conflict, stop talking. Move out and go back to that situation. Like this morning, we had a child in the classroom who could not talk because his connectivity was bad, his presence was bad. So we just told him, okay, hang on, we'll do the next 5 people and then come back to you. And he did well after that.
Mr. Hemant Kare has given his feedback. Great session. All three
Thank
stages
you.
explained very well and
Nice
simply.
to see you here,
Thank
Hemant.
you,
Thank you
Mr.
so much for
Hemant,
attending.
for joining us.
Thank
Here.
you. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Yes, Hemant.
Which is a better state after you are 50 plus?
Hemant, there is no better
Childhood.
state. I don't think there is any state which is better. As far as possible, move within the 3 states, because
would
then you
like
can
to.
enjoy life.
I would like to have that prescription if possible.
No, there is no prescription.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
There's one question. When a person has more of parental traits and is more critical, does constructive criticism helpful? Is
What is constructive criticism? Each one defines it his own way. There is no universal law for constructive criticism. So it cannot be. If you have to criticize, make sure you criticize the behavior of the person and not the person. That is the only way you can be constructive. So if I don't like you, I can say I don't like your behavior. I cannot say I don't like you as a person. I don't have that right. I have a right to criticize your behavior. I don't have a right to criticize you as a person because I have no control.
Yeah. Something that comes to my mind is a quick feedback poll on a scale of 1 to 5. If you could quickly respond to the poll. Yeah, that's Eureka, 100% good feedback. Everyone has appreciated, madam. And
Thank you.
That shows that experience does play a very important aspect while explaining TA. Friends, we are launching a capsule series of training which would be spread over 3 Tuesdays for 1.5 hours. This session, Pramo, we will share it with you individually. Dr. Savitri would be addressing those sessions and taking us through the TA concept very, very in depth. It's not what she shared was a tip of the iceberg. It has a lot of things that we need to learn. I am going to join the session both as a participant and moderator, but I would request you to take benefit of this session as Dr. Savitri has a lot of things to share with us. Before starting this session today, she said, Sheila, where do I stop? 1 hour is something which for webinar you have given a very short time for me. I said, madam, we will have a capsule series of training program and I'm sure you would all love to join it, and I request you to join it because that's something which we need to join her in the training session and take all those pearls of wisdom from her. Any more questions, friends? Ma'am, we thank you on behalf of Synergy Talent Managers. It was pleasure coordinating with you. It was pleasure going through the whole session. I am otherwise not so attentive. Today I was all ears to what you were saying. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure to have all of you friends here. You took out time from your busy schedule after you may be working, you may be studying, you would be doing presentations. 7 in the evening is something where you would like to keep away from all such difficult topics, but you made it to join us. Thank you so very much. We look forward you joining us in the training session. Thank you so much.
I have one last point to make.
Yeah.
I would tell all of you is doing this session today has helped me as a person, because in this session I have been able to realize that I was going a little off track. Now after talking to all of you and thinking about TA, I will come back to the original Savitri that I am and be a better person. Thank you so much to each of the participants. Thanks Hemant, thanks Sham, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Sheila, for this
you.
wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.